Another nice day to be working on stuff. Today I'm going to be doing something that I've been waiting several months for, and since it is starting to become fall, I want to try to knock it out now rather than when everything is very wet. Alright, so what we've got here today, this is a upgraded rear sway bar. It fits the second generation Honda Ridgeline. As far as I know, it's all years of the second generation regardless of model. And it is from a company called Goodwin Racing. I was actually pleasantly surprised when I started looking for parts for this to try to find something that I could do to it to make it handle a little bit better or drive a little bit better. I came across this. This is a much stiffer rear sway bar for the 2020. Mine's a 2021 Honda Ridgeline, and I was very pleasantly surprised because I know about this company. I've actually bought parts from this company before. This is Goodwin Racing. They make parts for Mazda Miatas, so I already know that it's going to be a very high quality product. They got this made specifically because the owner of the company bought a Honda Ridgeline and wanted this made, and now they're selling them. So this might be the first install video on this on YouTube. So I'm going to show you guys how to put this on. Typically rear sway bars are pretty easy. You've got these holes in the end. This one's actually adjustable. You can see that there's two holes in it. You can pick which one. When you go closer in, it effectively makes it stiffer. So if you want it stiffer, you run the inside hole. If you want it less stiff, you run the outside hole. I can already tell this is a very quality product. It is super heavy, which probably means it's solid. The reason why you want to upgrade your rear sway bar is because the stiffer the car is in the back, the more it wants to be effectively loose, is what they call it, so oversteer. If you upgrade your front sway bar and make it thicker, typically that'll induce more understeer, so it's a balancing effect. So I've done rear sway bars on a whole bunch of cars. You'll almost always notice this way more than changing your front sway bar. And in fact, if you've got like a front wheel drive car that's typically an understeering car, you might feel like the car handles better if you take off the front sway bar or make it smaller. I'm going to show you guys real quick how to put this on. They're usually very simple. There's usually one bolt on each end of this sway bar and then two bolts holding the bushing that goes around right here. Let's get this set up and get this in, show you guys how to install it. Alright guys, so it's going to be very hard for me to get a good angle, but basically I already know for a fact we're most likely going to have to take the rear wheels off. I'm just going to go ahead and take those off. So that would be step one after you get it up in the air. This is going to be significantly easier on the lift. The first thing you got to do, got to take the old sway bar off. So this right here, it's going to be hard to see, but that is your rear sway bar. You can always find it by finding the links. It's always got a sway bar link. We're gonna have to take this end off right here on each side. So that's our two attachment points where it attaches to the wheel. And then after that, the only other thing you're gonna have to take off, there's this clamp right here, and there's a bolt on the top and on the bottom. Okay, so what you've got here, this right here is the end of your sway bar. This nut that's right here is a 14 millimeter. So you're going to want to grab an impact or a big wrench, preferably 1/2 inch drive with probably an extension here to clear the brake rotor. You're going to have to hold the back side of this. Now, a lot of these sway bar links have flats cut onto the metal part that butts up against the back side of this. This one doesn't appear to have that. So my suggestion, which is typically what I end up having to use anyway, is some sort of skinny width set of vice grips. And you're going to try to get in here without messing up the rubber boot and try to clamp onto that piece of metal so that you can hold it while you screw this off of here. You're supposed to be able to use an Allen wrench in the end of this and then put a wrench right here. My experience with that is that you will almost always round out the center of this as soon as you get in to the threads that have been exposed to the air. The other thing is these threads have been exposed to the air. You're going to want to spray them with some sort of penetrant, something to give a little bit of lubrication on this. And I might have to spray these again, but I'm going to start with that one and start working on, I'm going to clamp it with these vice grips and I'm going to run it off with the impact. You can see in here the back side. This right here is the back side, so it's the nut with the end of the bolt that goes through from the other side. So these are 14 millimeters. So I've already sprayed those and started to crack them loose. Those are gonna come apart, no problem. To run those out of there, I'm just gonna use a, 1/2-inch ratchet and just run them out. This nut is a 17 millimeter. I'm pretty sure the hex that's supposed to go in here is a 6 millimeter hex, but I'm not gonna use the hex. I'm just using the vice grips. So this is a 17 millimeter nut, and those are 14 millimeters. And just to clarify, the bolts that go through to hold just the bushing part, those are 14 mils on the small side, and the nut on the back side right here is actually a 17, just like this bolt. Okay, so the other side was a hassle for getting this off. What you're going to want is a combination of the penetrating fluid, the heat, and some quality vice grips. I'm not so worried about it, but if you have to keep these links on here, you're going to want to get a high quality pair of vice grips that are skinnier than the ones I'm using. Now I'll show you what I'm using today, because the ones that I was using are from Harbor Freight, and it's not good quality metal. It's way too squishy metal. It's not hardened at all. So these vice grips, these are Milwaukee's, and you can feel a difference when you're actually doing the clamping part. The cheap, pot metal Harbor Freight ones that are low quality, they get kind of squishy. You can feel them springy when you get very close to being able to pop it closed. These ones, they're Milwaukee's. They've got big sharp teeth, not tiny little serrated teeth. The tiny teeth on the worst metal causes the teeth to just smash, and then it's just not enough to hold this. There is a lot of rust on these threads right here, and that's again, you're gonna want to make sure that you're lubricating that as much as you can, because realistically, what starts fighting you is that rust gets in the threads of here, and you're actually trying to smash down the rust as you turn it out. I'm probably going to ruin the rubber piece. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this hot, and then I'm going to spray the thread section. Got some WD-40 Specialist penetrant. I'm going to spray it right here all over the thread section. Let's see if this impact will just zip it right off. Oh, that is definitely hot. Be careful, a lot of this stuff's gonna be hot. Okay, so it's definitely just spinning this. This is infuriating. Let me tell you something, it's like this on every car. I haven't found one yet that didn't bite me like this. You'd think after all this time they would have come up with a better design for sway bar links, like a through bolt or something. Alright, so after a long battle to get this thing off of here, it is out, and I can try to snake this out of here. Now I took these other two bolts off right here already. We're gonna have to transfer the bushing probably, and the clamp over to the other one. Alright, well, that was a pain in the ass. So there's the old one. It is out. When you put the new one back in, you're going to want to put it just like that. The dip right here on the bar goes down. Go ahead and take your brackets and your rubber grommets off. Take one side of your exhaust right here. Take the two bolts off, wiggle it loose, And then as soon as it drops, you should be able to wiggle this out of here. All right, guys, so I actually found that there was instructions as well as another bag of extra parts and bolts and stuff. So this sway bar, while it is sold through Goodwin Racing, is actually made by a company called Progress Tech, and they've done a very good job with it. I like it so far. Found out some information about it. It is a 28 millimeter, and it's obviously adjustable. Torque specs right here. So your in-link bracket fasteners are 42 to 46 foot-pounds, and your in-link nuts, which that's your sway bar links, are 52 to 56 foot-pounds. So, word of warning, when you do this, more than likely you're going to have issues with the sway bar end links, as evidenced right there by that one that I had to cut. And so I cut that off. I don't like messing with these. If that nut doesn't come off and I'm fighting it too much, I'll get it loose enough to where I can cut it, and I will just cut it off and replace them. They're usually cheap. So the problem with this truck is you can't really find them. If you do, they're like 50 or 60 bucks each. So here's my pro tip of the day. These are the same as the Honda Passport. So if you find Honda Passport links like I did from this company, A Premium, or A1 Premium, I don't know. These are the Honda Passport links. So there's obviously a left and a right. One of them is slightly angled, but make sure you get one for each side. Those were cheap. Those were like $40 total, I think. So that's just a tip for you guys. I actually drove this around for a couple days. It's a new day, and driving it without the sway bar isn't a huge difference. It is still drivable, so if you get to that point where you have to get it back together for work, just go ahead and leave the sway bar off, cut the end links so that they're not hitting anything, and order yourself some new end links. So we're gonna put the new one back on. Okay, so just to illustrate for you guys the difference, I've got my micrometer here. This one, the new one, is advertised as a 28 millimeter. So I'll be measuring them both at underneath of where this bushing is gonna go, and I'll show you. So the old one, that is 26.7 millimeters. I'm gonna close it, re-zero it, open it back up, measure this one, 28.8 millimeters. So it's about 2 millimeters thicker. Alright, so make sure you use your included silicone grease. We've got our new bushing, new bracket on here. It's greased up. Make sure you put the grease between the bar and the bushing, not between the bushing and this metal. And she's ready to go on. Alright, so remember, you have to have one side loose. You're going to snake it over top of this exhaust, behind where it attaches to the body, and then you're going to get over there, you're going to pivot it so that this side's arm goes up, and then as you're doing that, you can work this one around this loose exhaust side, as long as it's above, and this bracket's going to be behind the subframe right here. So then you've got these parts. These are the bolts that hold it in. These are support and spacer brackets. These are going to go between the actual mount on the car and the new brackets. So don't forget these. So I'm going to get this side spun over. I'll go ahead and stick a bolt through it just to keep it in line. And then I'm going to hold it up there and try to start one of the bolts. Okay guys, so luckily these bolts are the same size. It's good to have one of these universal socket. This is a 14, made to go on this. That way I can run those bolts most of the way down before I tighten them. You want to try to, this bracket has some slots for holes. You want to try to center that and make sure it's not going to hit the exhaust or the body or anything and rattle. But we're going to run them most of the way down and not tighten them yet because we still have to put on our sway bar end links. So they're snugged, but we're not going to run them all the way down tight and crank on them till everything is tightened up. What I want to do is tighten the brackets after I've tightened the end links and have those attached. That way the suspension is all the way down, which is going to pull those two evenly. It'll self-level between the two because they'll both be at the full extent of their range. So the only minor difference that I'm seeing between these and the Passports, if there is any, which I can't really tell, is that on the Honda Passport sway bar end links, obviously I remember this bolt coming through this way towards us from the back side of this aluminum, because that's where I cut the nut off, and I know that these point outwards. If you look at the sway bar, I'll zoom in a little bit. The angle of it is this way a little bit. This is the end of the sway bar right here. The angle is this way a little bit, whereas these, they're offset. This is actually angling it this way according to how this is. Luckily, I mean, these joints right here, they will take up that slack, so I'm gonna go ahead and put these on here because I don't want to spend $54 for a set that have a very slightly different angle when I know that these will work without any issues whatsoever. So just make sure you've got the right side on the right side when you put it back together, and you're putting it back together correctly as far as which direction the bolt goes through. The bolt faces the rear on the bottom and the bolt faces outwards on the top. So it's gonna sit like this. All right guys, I want to clear something up here. I actually just spent a whole bunch of time on the road driving because I had these, which are the, what is it, the A1 or A Premium Auto. These are the cheap online rear sway bar links for a Honda Passport. So I ended up putting these through the hole in the sway bar and the hole in the truck, and they seemed like they were a lot smaller of a bolt, and I thought, oh, okay, it's wrong. So then I went out and I actually purchased the, you know, $50 or $60 Duralast. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys the part numbers because I'm still going to install these Duralast ones, but they are literally identical to the Honda Passport ones as far as the design, which you can see right here. Those are the same thing. They've got the same very slight angle. That's the exact same thing. Same size bolt. The only reason I am going to install and keep the Duralasts and probably return these A1, not because I think Duralast is better, but because if you look at this is the whole reason why I had to cut these things off here. This is a factory design right here, a factory style design. It's literally just a piece of metal, a flange. There's no flats. There is no way of holding this when you're tightening this down, which other than this stupid design that everybody still seems to use for some reason, this absolutely ridiculous hex in the end, do it with a wrench kind of thing. Other than that, there's no other way of holding this, and those things, after they've been on the car for a while, they will round out. You can't hold that if there's rust on the end of these threads, which there always is because the threads are always way too long. The difference is these Duralast ones right here, they have a hex. They have a hex built into that. Rather than just putting a circular flange, they have a hex on it. So you can put a wrench on here and hold it from the back side. That's why I'm putting Duralasts on here. The part numbers, if you get into this and just like me, if you're Honda Ridgeline or Passport or whatever you're doing this on, has problems with the sway bar end links, it's SL750, 832, and 833. I had to go to 2 different stores to get those, but those are the ones that are listed on AutoZone's website for the Honda Ridgeline. These, which will work, they're just going to be harder to get off if you ever have to take them off again. These A Premiums, they will work just the same. I don't like how much slop there is as far as, let me show you. These bolts are not the same size. Yeah, I don't like the amount of slop. Because if you don't tighten down the heck out of that, it's just gonna rattle like crazy. So you gotta make sure you tighten down really hard. And that hole right there is the same size as your adjustment hole in the end of the sway bar. So for most people, you're gonna use this hole because this hole is a softer setting. I'm using this hole because I like a nice firm rear sway bar, especially on a heavier vehicle like this. But anyway, just like I said, it's the exact same part between the Honda Passport and the Honda Ridgeline. Only reason I'm going with the Duralasts is because they have a hex built into it that I can use to take this apart. So once you've got your new sway bar links on there, or if you were able to manage to save your old ones and put them back on there, this is what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up before I go ahead and tighten up the upper ones, the actual mounts. What I've done is I've pushed this all the way upward on both sides the best I could, and it will self-straighten, but basically you want all of the slack to be going in the same directions. So I want the slack on the bottom one to be towards the upper part of the hole, and I want the slack on this sway bar part to be on the bottom part of the hole. These, on at least the Duralast ones, the nut is 14 millimeters and the hex side on the other side that you hold it with is 15 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten those down. And again, I want to try to push up on with the wrench right here to try to put it towards the top so that the slack is in the top of the hole, because these aren't big enough for this hole. Alright. And I will come back with a wrench and do that again in a minute. I'm going to do the upper one. I want the upper one to be on the lower part of the hole. So I'm going to pull it down a little bit as I tighten this. There we go. Okay. So this is towards the lower part of the hole, and this is towards the upper part of the hole in the spindle. Alright. I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll tighten the other two brackets. Alright, so once you've got your sway bar links tightened, you're going to move on to tightening these. Now you can see, make sure you've got this metal part underneath of the bracket. So they add this little galvanized section between the body and this new sway bar bushing bracket. And you can see it, since I already started bringing it down a little bit tight, it's started to squeeze some of that grease out of there, which is good. That means we got plenty of grease. So what I'm going to do, I already did a little bit of this, but you want to center this piece of metal in the bolt holes. So once that's centered very well, you're just going to finish tightening those down. Okay, so another thing that I want to point out, and the reason why I'm having such a problem, why I ended up going and getting these other ones that were listed as being for this truck rather than for the Passport, really doesn't matter because they're still too small. They're going to work because I tightened the crap out of them. Just to prove my point, the diameter right here, you can see this is a bigger bolt. This bolt fits correctly into here and through this hole right here. There's not a whole lot of play right here versus this one, which was drastically smaller. So if you put this together and it starts rattling, it starts clunking, your best bet is probably just going to be to buy some factory Honda part numbers. Until the parts stores get their stuff figured out, I'm going to go ahead and try it with these and see how long it goes before it starts rattling in the back. When it starts rattling in the back, I will take these off and I will get the right part numbers, because that will drive me crazy. But for now, I mean, that's a huge disappointment, and I really wish that the parts stores would get their stuff together and start vindicating the parts that they're making rather than just copying and pasting and not even checking into stuff, because this is really annoying. It's really annoying, especially when you're supposed to be getting a deal from a parts store. That's the whole point of it. its convenience. So anyway, with that being said, we're gonna get this exhaust hooked back up. So there you have it, everybody. You've got your brand new larger rear sway bar from Goodwin Racing installed. I've got some fresh in links, even though they're not the right ones. They are tight, and we are gonna take this thing for a little test drive and see how it goes, see how it rides, see if it feels a little bit tighter, make sure it doesn't rattle. I guess first I gotta put the wheels back on. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. If you are interested in doing this to your Honda Ridgeline, or possibly this might also fit the Passport or Pilot, not sure. But if you want to do this to your Honda Ridgeline, try to make it get a little bit better handling, go ahead and check out Progress Tech or go to goodwinracing.com. This is not a product placement. I just simply bought it and reviewed it. I like Goodwin Racing, and I definitely was pleasantly surprised to find that there was a rear sway bar for my Honda, which is a completely different vehicle. But like, subscribe, keep watching, guys, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.